Things like this usually don't happen in a community like ours. It's very tragic.
Investigators release autopsy reports today for 8 members of an Ohio family killed execution style.
We begin tonight with a deadline that has passed for the mother of 2 missing children from Rexburg.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be covering week 1 of the Brooks, Houck, and Joseph Lawson murder trial. Just the highlights versus more the back and forth that I do from the day to day. This is more for the people who don't care about the day to day and they just want an overall view of what happened that week. So this is just the recap of week 1, days 1 through 4. I am ready to record days 5 and 6, so after this I will go ahead and do that. But thanks for your support. It means a lot to me. Please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and those in the podcast platform, it's really going crazy over there. I do appreciate all of you. Please find ways to support the channel in the description box along with any sources and links for my social medias. I also want to mention that I usually don't cover trials like this. I cover cases usually in one video. I think I have maybe like 1 2-parter, but I usually only cover them in one video and then I can do follow-ups later on. But I did notice there really isn't too many people talking about this, and I believe that Crystal's voice needs to be heard. She deserves justice. When I'm recording this, it's July 3rd, 2025. 10 years since her anniversary that she was last seen. And I can't imagine how many tears and how much pain the family has gone through to get to here. So I'd like to discuss it with all of you. So let's jump right in. Remember, there are no cameras, laptops, or phones that are in the courtroom. So we're solely relying on those in attendance for the notes to know what's happening. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. They're both free ways that really help me out. So real quick case recap. Crystal Maria Rogers was 35 years old when she disappeared on July 3rd, 2015. She was last seen by her live-in boyfriend, Brooks Houck, and according to Brooks, they spent the last few hours that evening on his family's farm and left around midnight. Once they returned home, he said he went to bed while Crystal stayed up with their young son. The next day, on July 4th, Brooks claimed he woke up and found only their son in bed and Crystal was gone. He told police that this really wasn't a big issue for him because, according to him, she had left in the middle of the night like this before. It wasn't until no one heard from Crystal when her mother, Sherry Ballard, reported her missing. Now, just as a reminder, Brooks Houck is facing charges of murder and tampering with evidence in connection with Crystal's disappearance. And Joseph Lawson, who is the son of Steve Lawson, is charged in conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with evidence just like his father was. As of right now, Crystal's remains have not been found. So day 1 of trial focused on jury selection, though not everyone counts that as a day. We are covering it, so we're counting it. A total of 132 jurors are brought in, and they were split into 4 groups for further questioning. These 4 groups included some who have heard about the case, others who have only heard a little. Some knew some details but had not formed an opinion yet, and a portion had already formed an opinion based on what they knew. It took the entire first day, but a jury of 15 was ultimately seated. That's 12 jurors with 3 alternates. Day 2 began with opening statements, and the prosecution revealed several key details. Prosecutor Jim Lowowski told the jury that the most important thing that they could bring to the courtroom with them was their common sense. They explained that the Commonwealth plans to present evidence that Crystal Rogers is in fact deceased. Prosecution's opening, we learned that Danny Singleton is expected to testify that Brooks's mother, Rosemary Houck, approached him about getting rid of Crystal. According to the prosecution, this is when the conspiracy began. Prosecutors also said that more than one person will testify that Crystal believed she and Brooks were going to have a kid-free date night, but instead they ended up going to the Houck family farm. Brooks said that him, Crystal, and their son arrived to the family farm around 7:30 p.m. and they left around midnight. Around that same time, Joseph Lawson called his father, Steve Lawson, and they spoke for 3 minutes. Steve then called Brooks at 12:08 a.m., and their call lasted for 13 seconds. Brooks's digital footprint places him at the Old Kentucky Home State Park for about 15 minutes before he returned home. The prosecution would say that Brooks lied during his initial interview with investigators. He told them when they got home, he went to bed while Crystal stayed up on her phone, but her phone actually shut off around 9:30 p.m. on July 3rd. The prosecution also brought up Brooks's brother, Nick Houck. His police cruiser was searched as he is an officer with Bardstown police, and a blanket was found inside. A recorded conversation will be played during trial, which Rosemary and Brooks are discussing this blanket. They also mention that several people close to Brooks, his mother's boyfriend Larry, he is referred to her ex-boyfriend in some, but Larry, his sister Rhonda, his brother Nick, and his mother Rosemary all testified before a Nelson County grand jury, and they recorded their own testimony. Also, the prosecution mentioned that Nick's phone was off, according to records, from the evening of July 2nd until sometime in the afternoon of July 4th. Brooks Houck's defense opened by claiming that the case was built under pressure from the media and Crystal's family. He explained that Brooke and Crystal met in 2010, and in 2011 they welcomed their son. The defense argued that for 4 years, police had no solid evidence and only began to pull information from people using questionable tactics. They insisted that Brooks never said Crystal was definitely on her phone that night, only that she usually plays games on it. Now, as for Nick's phone being off, they claimed that he was actually fighting with his ex-girlfriend at the time and he just didn't want to deal with her blowing up his phone. They pointed out that Brooks and Crystal had exchanged loving messages on July 3rd. They also pointed out that DNA found in Crystal's car and a thumbprint discovered did not match any of the suspects. The defense went on to say that the reason Steve and Joseph Lawson's phones pinged in the area was because Steve had gone to pick up a car he shared with an ex-girlfriend from Boston Road. That road runs parallel with Bluegrass Parkway. After they retrieved the car, he drove it back to Bardstown, then went to a place on Thompson Hill Road. Joseph's attorney chose to reserve his right for an opening statement, leading to the first witness to be called, which was Crystal's daughter, Kaylee. She said that she had a great relationship with her mom and that they spoke every day. When Crystal and Brooks began dating, Kaylee really liked him, and they even talked about him adopting her and taking his last name. But once her little brother was born, everything changed. Kaylee was the last person to see her mom before going to her grandmother's for the night. She texted Crystal later asking to go to a friend's house, but she never heard back. She also texted Brooks but received no reply. When she got home the next day, she said that Brooks jumped out of bed when she walked into the room that he and Crystal shared. When she asked where her mother was, Brooks said that she was with Sabrina. The defense did not cross-examine Kaylee at all. The next two witnesses were friends of Crystal. She told them that they were expecting a kid-free night with Brooks. Then a former Nelson County detective, John Snow, took the stand. He brought several key points to light. A receipt from Walmart inside her purse, which led to the prosecution showing video footage of Crystal in the Walmart with her children before 4:30. Snow noted that it rained that night. This was important because Brooks claimed he and Crystal walked the farm for 4.5 hours, feeding cows and having a fire. The court was shown footage of Brooks being interviewed by multiple agencies. In one interview that took place on July 7th, an investigator asked Brooks a question, asking, "What's the worst thing that ever happened to you?" Brooks couldn't answer. In an interview from July 8th, Brooks is seen adjusting a recorder in his pocket. He was seen walking into the interview room on the video adjusting it. However, the detective obviously did not see this as he was walking in behind Brooks, but he saw this later on video. Brooks was asked to write a statement of where he was on July 3rd, and he spent an hour and 30 minutes doing so. At the completion of writing his statement, he read it out loud, which the prosecution insinuated was for his recorder. Brooks said that that day he was paying his cell phone bill, he invoiced lumber, he paid Danny Singleton, and then he went to go to the lumber store before going home. He arrived home at 5:30 p.m. and then left to go to the farm at 7:30 p.m. Brooks claimed that their relationship had typical issues, as every relationship does, and that they always work things out. At one point, he speculated that he didn't get worried when he woke up and she was gone because she may have gone to a fantasy party, something she supposedly did with friends, but there's no evidence she ever attended one of those. Not that it mattered if she did. During that interview, Brooks called Steve Lawson on speaker and asked Steve why he called him that night at midnight. Steve said it was about a rental property issue and that Brooks told him he had to speak with Crystal. While in that interview, Nick Houck is also heard calling Brooks and told him to basically stop talking to police. That moment is when detectives started to look at Nick differently. The prosecution also played an interview that Brooks did with Nancy Grace, where Brooks again said that when they returned home from the farm, Crystal began playing on her phone before she went to bed. After his interview with the sheriff's office on July 8th, there was video of his cruiser following Brooks' truck into the Houck family farm. The next day, on July 9th, Nick declined an interview with police, but his cruiser would be taken in by Bardstown police and searched by the Kentucky State Police. Detective Snow told the court that there was no proof Crystal made it home on the night of July 3rd, and she has not been seen or heard from since. And that's why they're really focusing on what happened the night of July 3rd into July 4th. The defense discussed how cooperative the Houck family had been, noting they allowed many searches of their homes and vehicles, and they stressed that no evidence had been found, no evidence of a crime, no body, and no murder weapon. The defense also brought up that Steve Lawson had been trying to find housing for a stepdaughter who had been evicted. Cell phone records show Brooks called Crystal 3 times in the 36 hours after she disappeared and texted her just once. He also messaged some of her family and friends asking if he had seen her. Detective Snow confirmed that none of the fingerprints found in Crystal's car matched any of the suspects. The thumbprint and the palm print found inside her car didn't match them either. Joseph's attorney, which is the first time he's asked any questions, asked Detective Snow whether the only time Joseph's name has been brought up in testimony so far was to confirm that his DNA was not found in the car, and Snow said yes. The jury asked Detective Snow a few questions. They wanted to know whether Crystal's clothing that was seen on the Walmart video on July 3rd had ever been found, and Detective Snow said no. They also asked whether Brooks had left a voicemail when he tried to call her those 3 times, and Snow said investigators believe that he did not leave a voicemail. Now, more witnesses came to the stand to challenge Brooks' testimony. One said that she sold him a voice recorder on July 6, 2015. Another said that her office was closed on July 3rd, 2015. So even though he placed on his timeline that he met with her, there was no way. Another person testified who occasionally worked with Brooks. He said that it rained that day, so there was no way they had done work together on July 3rd, as he put on his timeline. Then the HOA president testified that Brooks was actually cited for lawn violations on July 3rd, even though Brooks put on his timeline that he was mowing. A friend and coworker of both Brooks and Crystal testified that just weeks before she disappeared, Crystal accused Brooks of cheating on her. Now, Danny Singleton took the stand next. He worked for Brooks for many years and was arrested in December 2015 for lying to the grand jury. He originally claimed that he was in a bar in Louisville, but later admitted he had been using drugs at home and he was just afraid to tell the truth. While in jail, he was visited by the FBI in April of 2016. He told them that Rosemary Houck had asked him if he knew someone who could get rid of Crystal. He told her that anything could be done in Nelson County if you have enough money. Now, after that meeting, Danny's charges were reduced and he was released from jail. The defense accused him of trying to lie to get out of jail, but Danny insisted that he was telling the truth. Window tinting came up. Now, I may have forgot this when we were talking about opening statements, but the prosecution said that Brooks' house had his windows tinted just days before Crystal Rogers disappeared, and that was just so that surveillance could not see that nobody was in the car when they left. However, Brooks's attorney said during opening statements that their son had an eye condition and Crystal actually asked him to get the window tinted. This came up. One window tinter testified that Brooks came in for a same-day appointment on July 2nd and he requested a legal tint. Now, it would come out through the back and forth that it was actually, he requested an appointment, I would assume, because the tinter called him on July 2nd and told him he had an availability after there was a cancellation. So Brooks came in and got his window tinted. The defense said the tint was installed for his son who had the eye condition. And like I said, that Crystal requested it. Another tinter was called to the stand and they confirmed that Brooks asked for information about getting his truck tinted. Now, on to day 4, more testimony came in that contradicts Brooks's July 8th statement. One witness said that she was out of the office again on July 8th and could not meet with him. Another, who knew both Brooks and Crystal, said that she did not like Crystal. Brooks and her had a conversation one time and she asked him why he never left Crystal, and he said it was because he didn't want to risk losing their son. Now, Steve Lawson's ex-girlfriend testified. She said that in 2014 the couple had shared a car, but when they broke up she kept the car. At some point the car would eventually disappear, and then on July 3rd, 2015 she was leaving work and she saw the car. She had the key fob on her. She unlocked it and drove home. She claimed to clean it out the next day, July 4th, after he went to go steal it. She claimed that it was actually still in front of the property that she parked it at, one of her family members, and she went out on July 4th. She cleaned it, and inside she found needles and a little slugger baseball bat. She said that years later, in 2017, she reconnected with Steve. One night, she overheard him and Joey talking about moving a body on the Houck family farm. She didn't tell police this, though, until 2023, and the defense questioned her about the interrogation and how police used imitation tactics, including threatening to take away her son, to get her to talk to them. She said she would eventually get clean, and she wanted to tell police and would eventually testify in front of a grand jury. Cell data was also reviewed. Brooks' phone was tracked to the Houck family farm at 9:30 a.m. on July 3rd, and then he left around 4 p.m. So he spent all day at the family farm. He went to the lumber center, and then he went home around 4:30 p.m. He stayed there until about 7 p.m. when he returned to the farm until about midnight. His phone showed a stop at the Old Kentucky Home State Park until 12:08 a.m., and then he arrived back at home at 12:18 a.m. Nick's phone, like I said, was turned off from 11 p.m. on July 2nd and remained off or out of signal until 1:47 p.m. on July 4th. Steve's phone had been traced from a bar down to the Bluegrass Parkway, then back to Bardstown, and then he went to the Thompson Hill address on the morning of July 4th. No cell phone data was available for Joey Lawson, even though he called his father 3 times between 11:06 p.m. and 12:03 a.m. He never gave access to his phone, though, like Brooks and Steve did. A neighbor of Brooks and Crystal's testified next. She was close with Crystal and said they spoke every day, including on July 3rd. The next morning, on July 4th, she noticed early when she woke up between 6 and 7 a.m., she noticed that Crystal's car was gone, which stood out to her because she said Crystal was not an early riser. She testified that she also saw Nick and Rosemary Houck at the house after Crystal disappeared. She said that she saw them turn their cars around with their trunks facing the house, like towards the basement, and Nick carried 4 bags inside. Now the final witness for day 4, she said that she saw Crystal's car pulled over on the side of the road of the Bluegrass Parkway with its hazard lights on sometime after 10 p.m. on July 3rd. But that's how week 1 ended. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Like I said before, I am covering this daily, but I know that's not for everyone, so I'm going to try and do a weekly one as well. This is only supposed to go 10 days, but it could go into week 3, so we will go ahead and see. Like I said, I am recording days 5 and 6 right after this, so I will try to get them out to you as soon as possible. I have a lot going on. My son leaves for his father's for 5 weeks in like 2 weeks, so I'm trying to spend as much time with him as possible, but I will get these out to you. Just make sure to turn on notifications or follow if you're on the podcast so you're updated when those are put out. Until the next video, stay safe out there. The world's an ugly place.